wistful wishing, nor is it an escape from objective reality. To be lost merely in our prayers might terminate in an unconscious desire to escape the activities of life. Therefore, we affirm that divine intelligence not only knows what to do, it impels us to act on its knowing. Please look at the screen or on the front of your program and join me in affirming.
With God as my source, I have within me the strength and courage to walk the path of plenty, the journey of joy, and the course of conscious creation.
Thank you.
Thank you. A great spiritual master once said, "I come that you may have life and have it more abundantly." We all know who that is, right? The master teacher, Jesus. And he said such things as, "Seek first the kingdom and all else is added. And it is done unto you as you believe." These particular phrase, and he also said, ye are children of the Most High. Ye are gods. Ye are children of the Most High. Deeply embedded in these teachings of great masters like Jesus is the idea that we share in the kingdom of the divine. And if we look around us, we can see that life is lavish abundance. Lavish abundance. Fruit that falls from trees all over the place that never even gets eaten. The amounts of blades of grass, the stars in the skies. You know, it doesn't take much to realize that abundance is the nature of God, the nature of the divine. And we are the inheritors of that. We are that in truth. We are the divine presence of abundance individualized. It's really important to start there when we talk about concepts like wealth. Because what I'm really aware of, and I see it in my own consciousness, is that when we talk about wealth and we talk about being rich and things like that, that we can maybe get hooked into some things, teaching traditions that we've had from the past that have made it sound like poverty in some way was a better thing. And there's no judgment at all here. It's not that. What I'm saying is that some of the things that we've been maybe taught in our previous spiritual traditions have in some ways undermined this essential truth that Spirit, God, is infinite supply, and that as we seek first the kingdom, the abundance of the divine within us, that it outpictures in our lives. So this entire month is an opportunity to deepen into this awareness of what this means to live as the abundant, prosperous, wealthy beings that we are in truth on all levels. You know, wealth, the core of wealth is well-being. Well-being. And so this is about bringing a sense and an awareness of well-being to every aspect of our lives. Our health, our peace of mind, our relationships, and, you know, our workplace, and our financial well-being, our financial abundance. So the principles that we're looking at this month really support our awareness and our opening to seeking first this kingdom within, these principles that allow us to ride the wave of infinite supply and abundance of the divine. And I'm drawing from two particular books this month. One is called The Path of Wealth by May McCarthy. This book came out in 2015. She is very clearly a new thought person. As I've read through her book, what I've noticed is not only is she very clearly, she's very clear that her daily practice where she works in partnership with the divine, which she calls her CSO, her Chief Spiritual Officer, her name for God, the God presence within her. She works in partnership with that presence every morning, dedicating 30 minutes a day. You know, it's not like a huge amount of time, but it's dedicated daily time. That her life has unfolded beautifully. When she's been inconsistent with that and did it only in times of trouble, her life didn't work as well. There would be crises and all kinds of things popping up. But as she began to be consistent and have that ongoing relationship and partnership with the divine, she was able to build, 5 or 6 multi-million-dollar companies in the last 30 years or so. And she uses very clearly New Thought, Ancient Wisdom principles. There is actually still one schedule for somebody on the back prayer table if you'd like to participate in this. What she does is she has a formula that she teaches. This is a review for everyone because we have some people who haven't been here. The formula is that you begin with some sort of a sacred text or reading, some inspired spiritual text. And then after that, you write a letter of gratitude to the divine. And the letter of gratitude is not only for things that have already happened in your life or that are present, it's also a letter of gratitude for things that you choose to manifest in your life. So I'm so happy and grateful that every single seat in this sanctuary is filled every single Sunday. You know, it's living in that place of gratitude. What I have come to realize about gratitude is that it is the quickest way to connect myself to oneness consciousness and to the divine, to be aware of who I am in truth. Pure spirit, individualized, and that God is my source. It brings me right back there every time as I live in gratitude. That's why living in gratitude is considered by many great spiritual teachers as the highest vibration, because it's a direct connection with source. So anytime you're feeling disconnected, drop right into gratitude and notice what happens. It's very powerful. The other book that I have been using is a book that goes all the way back to 1910. And it is The Science of Getting Rich. Okay, again, there's the getting rich part that can sometimes cause a funny feeling for those of us who've been maybe brought up thinking maybe that's not such a good thing. One of the things I love about Wallace Wattles and this book is that he brings the spiritual principles right in, and he shows how having a base of wealth in your life is a springboard for you to give your gifts. You're not so focused on where's the next dollar coming from. You can be focused on how can I give my gifts to the planet. So as we put all of these structures in place in our life, we're living a human life, then we are more able to self-actualize and to give those gifts that we have. And he's really a master at getting that across. So one of the things that we started with in the last 2 weeks, and I'm not going to do it again because you can listen to the previous talks to go through this, but I asked everybody to assess themselves, no guilt trips, this is just an honest look at where we are on the abundance scale, on the joy of living our spirit's purpose scale, and on being conscious creators of our lives scale. Now, any time we do an assessment like this on where we are, and then we begin to think where we want to be, what happens? There's a gap between where we want to be and where we are now, and it causes a state of tension. There's a pull in the direction of the vision. So that's what the whole purpose of this is for us to feel the pull. If you have a vision for yourself, could you feel the pull of it? The pull is what supports our growth, our awakening, our desire to clear away all the obstacles in our own consciousness so that we can be a vibrational match with that vision. So this entire month then is, and what we're doing really every time we're here, are the spiritual practices, getting clearer and clearer and clearer on the spiritual practices and principles that support us and facilitate this movement from where we are to that vision that we have caught of who we are in truth and what we're here to be, to do, and to have. So we talked about cultivating a deep daily partnership with God, and to me it goes beyond the 30 minutes. For me, it's about staying awake all day long, and even in my dreams. So the 4 things that are ours to do, often what happens when people are very, we Americans are very independent sorts. And we can get really caught up into thinking that we have to do it all. And what I love about this teaching and any other spiritual teaching is we realize that there are things that are ours to do, and there are things that are spirits to do, or the divine to do. So the 4 things that are ours to do, and you can remember it by the acronym CAGG. The first is to be clear, have a clear picture about what it is that you want. And some of you may not know that. I know there have been times when I have not been clear. That's what our visioning practice is all about. When we do the visioning process and we ask, what is God's highest idea for my life? And we go deep and we listen, that's where we begin to get our clarity. So being as clear as we possibly can about the what. The second is to align with it, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that in a few minutes. The third is to be grateful. We talked about that. Gratitude aligns us with the divine, connects us with God, and also puts us in the feeling sense of I already have this good. And then the final G is guidance. It's being open to guidance from the divine. Those hunches, those awarenesses that we have, move in this direction, do this, take this action. So clear, align, grateful, guidance. So the new habit then that I've been encouraging everybody to develop this month is what I talked about, is that daily practice with the divine. And there, like I said, I think there's maybe one left on the table back there of a schedule of readings from the Science of Getting Rich. There's a chapter each week where you read it before you start. And you write your letter of gratitude, you say it out loud, and you envision it. And so it is. That's basically it. All right. So, okay, just question. Anybody participating in it? Anybody been doing the 30-day? All right. Very good.
Well, Kathleen, I've been doing it, but I don't have the books
Uh-huh.
to read the chapters.
Okay, you can get a PDF of the Science of Getting Rich, because it's in the public domain. You can get a PDF online of it. Yeah.
'Cause I've done the gratitude part.
Yeah, right.
But then I'm thinking,
Yeah, the reading part is really, really, really helpful. Really helpful, very powerful. Okay, so I want to begin with this quote from The Science of Getting Rich. He said, "You must not rely upon thought alone, paying no attention to personal action. This is the rock upon which many otherwise scientific metaphysical thinkers meet shipwreck. The failure to connect thought with personal action." Now, for me, sometimes it's action that I have to look at myself, because sometimes I move into action, sooner than I really should. But what this is all about is coordinating thought and action, or inspiration and action. So we have inspired action, and it flows with ease and with grace. So I know there's a tendency to say, I've heard all this before. Isn't there something new here today? But what I'm going to invite you to do is listen with new ears, and then ask yourself, in what ways am I maybe not completely incorporating this into my life? How could I incorporate it more fully into my life? So the first thing I'm going to talk about then is thinking in a certain way. This is a terminology that Wallace Wattles uses. Thinking in a certain way. And he has 3 basic premises that go along with that. And they're so beautifully stated. And if you've studied any type of metaphysics, and particularly science of mind, you'll recognize this whole concept about thinking. He said, there is one original formless substance from which all things are made, and which in its unformed state permeates, interpenetrates, and fills all space. Ernest Holmes said, we're surrounded by an intelligent force or substance from which all things come. It is all around us in its original state, ready and willing to take form. Sound really familiar? I mean, they're saying the same thing. Number 2, a thought placed in this substance produces the thing that is thought. Number 3, therefore, we can form things in our thoughts which are impressed upon the formless substance and cause the thing we thought about to be created. This is our divinity I'm talking about here. This is our divine nature. We are co-creators with the divine. Our thought is creative. We know this. And yet, are we willing to be mindful of our thinking throughout the day, and also what passes through our lips? Sometimes sometimes thoughts arise. I don't want to send anybody on a guilt trip. Sometimes thoughts arise, and it's what we do with those thoughts that makes the difference. Thoughts that that don't serve us. So that's where the mastery comes in. So this is essentially, thoughts become things is essentially New Thought 101. It's the basic thing to really ground ourselves in. So I'd like to illustrate this by this story. So a man walks into a restaurant with an ostrich. And has a seat. Ostrich sits down next to him. The server comes to the table and says, what would you like to order? And the man said, I'd like a hamburger, fries, and a Coke. And the ostrich says, I'll have that too. And the server comes and brings back the order and says, well, that'll be $12.40. So the man reaches into his pocket without looking or counting, puts it on the table. It's exactly $12.40. So, the server's looking at this and that is really interesting. So the next day, they come in again. Have a seat. Server comes up, what would you like today? Well, I'd like a grilled cheese, potato salad, and a Coke. Brings the food out. That'll be $10.40. The man reaches into his pocket without looking, puts the money, exact amount of money on the table, And the server is like really starting to get curious about all of this. So one more time, the man and the ostrich walk in, and this time in the evening, for dinner, and the server asks what they would like, and the man said, I would like a steak and potatoes and a salad and a Coke. And the ostrich says, I'll have the same thing. So the server again comes out. This time the server just can't contain herself. She's just totally blown away by this. And as watching this time, and the man and says, that'll be $35.42. So he reaches in his pocket, puts the money, and it's exactly that amount of money. So, okay. So she says, so I don't understand. What is going on here? How do you do this? Why is it the exact amount of money every single time? And the man said, well, let me tell you, several years ago, I was up in my attic and I saw a lamp, and I said, that could be a really pretty lamp if I polished it. So I started polishing it, and a genie popped out, and the genie gave me 2 wishes. And the first wish that I came up with is I said, well, I would like to be able to, every time I have something to purchase, that I can put my hand in my pocket and bring out the money to cover it. And she said, that's brilliant. I love that idea. That was very well thought out. So then she looks over at the ostrich and she says, well, what about the ostrich? And he said, well, that was my second wish that was not so well thought out. I said I wanted a chick with long legs. So anyway. So that's our part. Our part in the creative process is to have a clear picture that we are impressing upon the universal substance. If the picture is misty or vague, the universal law doesn't have anything to work with. So the clarity is really important. Not the how. The how part, the creative process itself and the guidance along the way, that's God's job. That's Spirit's job, or what she calls, May McCarthy calls her CSO, her Chief Spiritual Officer. That's the job of the divine. So our job is to be very clear and to impress it on. And when we focus on something with a lot of energy and emotion, that's how we impress it. And so these daily spiritual practices are impressing that picture of our life, the life that we choose to live, on the universal law, and we say it with gratitude as if it's already happening. And Wallace Wattles says, you need to know what you want and want it strongly enough so that it will stay in your thoughts. And again, our practice supports that, our morning practice. So again, decide what you want, align with what you want. And again, we align with it by standing guard at the portals of our mind. That's directly from Emerson. Standing guard at the portals of our mind. Knowing that the thoughts that we think and speak become manifested. They return to us manifested. Be grateful in advance. Follow guidance. And what I want to add to that then is the next principle I want to talk about today, which is acting in a certain way. So we follow guidance, but we act in a certain way. There's a certain way that we act in order to allow the manifestation to take place. I love this particular quote. It says, by thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. So it's bringing the two together. So what is acting in a certain way? This is it. This is the essence of it. Put your whole mind into present moment awareness, which means present action. Put your whole heart, soul, and very being into present action. So we don't want to bother about what happened yesterday and, whether we did something well or didn't do it well. We don't want to jump into the future and be doing things in the present that can be done in the future, that belongs to the future. And we don't want to wait until the environment is better in order to take action. So it's about taking action with love, with heart, in the present moment. And there is a beautiful story that so wonderfully illustrates this. And it's based on the life of Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart lived in the 1920s when it wasn't accepted that women wanted to be a pilot. She really wanted to be a pilot, trained for it, and the airlines would not hire her. They were not interested because they didn't think women could do it. And so what did she do? She found a job in social work. And she applied this principle that I'm talking about. She gave her heart, her soul, her whole being to being a social worker. And at the same time, she held the vision of being a pilot. So sometimes that's what happens is if people are unhappy with their current job, they let things kind of get lax. This is about being present moment with whatever you're doing, putting your heart and soul into it, and still having your vision. So she did this. And then one day she got a phone call. It was from a man who said that he had someone who would like to fund the first woman to cross the Atlantic in a plane, the first transatlantic flight. And here were the conditions. She would be chaperoned by 2 men. She would not be allowed to fly the plane. They were going to get all of the money, which was quite a bit of money. She would get nothing. And, by the way, she might die in the process. And so what did Amelia Earhart say? I'll do it. Okay? That's another acting in a certain way. When it's something that's moving you in the direction of your dreams, even if it isn't the exact perfect conditions that you want, she moved. Yeah, let's do this. So in less than 5 years later, she became the first woman to fly solo transatlantic, and then became one of the most respected and well-known people on the planet. So she put this principle into action. She gave her heart and soul to whatever was in front of her in the moment and still kept her vision active. What a beautiful story to end with, really, today. And to kind of tie it all together and realize that when we think in a certain way, when we keep our thoughts aligned with our vision and who we choose to be, and when we act in ways that reflect that vision, and we take inspired action, always moving in the direction of our dreams and our vision, we live that life that we desire. We live that life of abundance and prosperity that we were just talking about. So for this, I am so grateful. And I just invite you to turn within in this moment. And let's end in prayer. So yes, there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect, and that life is my life now. The infinite one presence, the one source, which I call God, is perfect love, is a universal mind whose ideas are good and very good, a presence whose activity is always moving in the direction of greater and greater good, and knowing that God is lavish, unfailing abundance. I know that all that is true about God is true about me, for I am made in the likeness and image of God. Everyone in this room is made in the likeness and image of God. We are abundance, individualized. We are the receivers and the demonstration of the ideas in the mind of God. So I just joyfully accept this truth, knowing that each and every person is divinely guided and led, that each and every person is inspired with clear vision for their lives, that each and every one of us are tuned into all that we are grateful for, both what's happened and for the ideas that come to us, knowing that they are already happening. I know that we are living in perfect alignment as we stand guard at the portals of our mind all day long, and that means what goes between our lips as well, that we are living in the kingdom of God itself. We seek first the kingdom, knowing that all the good that we desire in our lives is added to this. So I am just so grateful, so happy to receive and to witness the manifestation of all this good in my life and in the lives of every single person in this room. And so it is with great joy that I release this word into the creative medium, that thinking substance, that formless substance of the divine itself, known as the universal law, that takes the impress of this thought and brings it into beautiful and glorious manifestation. And together we say, yes! And so it is.